Hey everybody, I just thought I'd do a bit of a chat. Today's Friday during the day, and it's been a while since I've actually done a update video or a chat video, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Today I have a painting update is what I'll start with for those of you that might want to just see some miniatures and what I've been up to that way, but I am going to do a bit of a chat today as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about vacation in July. I'm going to talk a little bit about the movie The Thing, really focused around John Carpenter's 1982 The Thing. I believe it's 1982. And then talk a little bit about Savage Core, just some thoughts, because I've been just actually a little focused on that lately. And so, that's kind of what I'm going to start with. So, I will, I guess, just go right to the painting update, and so I'll show you that, and then we'll come right back. Hey everybody, so as far as the table update goes today, I have a few things to show. One of the big things is that I'm just about complete on the goblins. As I said before, that this has been a slow month for me. I haven't really done much, but when I have done stuff, I've been working on these guys. I do have, the first coat of base paint on the goblins, which really changes things quite a bit. They're really close to complete. In some cases they are complete depending on the guy, but I actually do have to do some washes on the non-green on the goblin itself, not the wolf. And so I am quite excited about that because I'm excited to be done. Today what I'll most likely do in the paint session is just do a little bit on some of the shields that have little doodads on them. So in this case, he still has this black sort of frilly stuff on the shield. I've done the sort of bone colored things. I need to just paint that, and then I also need to paint some of the arrowheads that are on some of the shields. Let's see, I don't know, I'd have to look. They're not on all of them, they're just on some of them, and so I do need to do that. What I may just do is just actually work on the bases today. I do have some little doodads to do, but I think I've wanted to also just get the first coat of sand and stone onto the bases, so I might actually just work on that. It'd be pretty conducive to me chatting. But I've actually done like 2 more banners. Like I don't remember if you guys remember my banners from last time that I've been doing by hand. They're sort of meant to just be slapped together. This is like the banner for my tribe. They're basically, it's sort of meant to be like a bit of a tie-dye green and blue effect with a wolf, sort of a ferocious black wolf on the brushed on by the goblins into the middle of the banner. I really quite like that banner. It's really simple to do, and I quite like it. I have a third one here. I think, like they don't, because they're just meant to be slapped on, they don't come out exactly the same, but I think that it's fairly reproducible, the effect. And so, yeah, pretty happy with that and being able to reproduce that. I mean, I have to do some washes on some of the goblin bits, and a couple of little bits here and there. The heads, for the guys that are holding the heads, the human heads, there's only a couple of them. See if I can find one here. Still have to do that. He's still, he's holding a head. I haven't painted the head up. But these guys are actually really close to just being playable now. And that really increases my starter army quite a bit now, having 60 goblins on foot and I think around 37 or so, 35, I'd have to check again, of the wolf riders. So that's great. That's kind of where I'm at. Go a little closer here. I think they look fairly similar to the ones that I did before, except the blue for the wolf riders is much more pronounced. Like that's sort of one of the signatures with my wolf riders is a lot of blue. Blue is the highlight color of the army, but I think it's meant to be, the way I'm doing it, a bit more of a regal status symbol. So like my boss actually has it on his shield for that reason. But then I have guys like with it in their hair, guys on their swords, just various additions, like on some of them have it on the tips of their spear, things like that. So yeah, so that's that for the Wolf Riders. I'll pan over, I'll just show something else here that I'm doing. So I did show my Battletech miniatures already. These are some of the plastic guys that I reviewed before. And this back row here are ones that I've shown already. I did actually go out and get some other old ones, old Ral Partha miniatures for Battletech, and I actually landed a second Marauder. So I actually have two, this one and this one. Yeah, and he's pretty much the same. He's posed a little bit differently. And I had to patch up his arm a little bit there, but pretty much the same. I don't actually remember all of their names, but I do have, I'll try to remember. I've got the Spider here, which I don't believe I showed. You know, I've got them and I've done the bases. I don't remember this guy. I did at one point. I was looking him up, but I kind of like the way he looked. I picked that one up. Showed you the Marauder. This was another unseen, but I actually don't remember the name of him. It escapes me. And Cataphract I showed when I was doing the comparison video, but he was within the second group that I picked out. This one I believe is called the Jenner. And then lastly, I have the Hermes. So I think I got a good mixture across now, with all of these across assault, heavy, light, and medium mechs. So it should be good. Just a good amount to start playing the game with. I have actually started reading the rule book that I have. It's a pretty big rule book because I've got the more in-depth one. So I've made a fair way into it, but I still have ways to go on that. So yeah, and then lastly, this isn't really a painting table update, but I might have to zoom out here. But for those of you that watched the Savage Core video that I did, I am anticipating getting into that this fall. Really looking forward to that. And I actually picked up one of these. This is a T-Rex model. It's what you would find like in a bookstore, like in the kids section, where they have like all the dinosaurs and stuff. It is made by Schleck, I believe is the name, which is a fairly good company when it comes to like dinosaur models. There's a couple of them that are really known to produce good models. And he's just ready to go. Like he's already painted up, so I can use him for the T-Rex scenario, like where the T-Rex comes on the board. And yeah, I actually saw somebody highlight this on the Facebook community for the game, and I just happened to be in the store and I saw it and I'm like, zoink, there we go, problem solved, I've got one now. So yeah, he actually has a gotta always have the mouth open, right? So yeah, I think scale-wise it'll actually be pretty good. It wouldn't really be fair to use a Battletech figure, but assuming that some of the 28mm figures will be somewhat similar in scale to other ones I have, I'll just grab a Space Marine. But, you know, he's like right there. I think actually that's pretty good for scale. You know, I'm not really worried about being completely exact, but I think from what I've seen, that's pretty good. So, all right. Back to the chat. Or actually, I shouldn't say that. I want to show something else. This isn't really a painting piece, just like this, but I did actually get something that I wanted to show you guys. So one thing I did end up getting is the Fantasy line for Coat d'Arms Citadel paints, which this was sort of a guilty pleasure sort of purchase. It was technically like a Father's Day gift that I didn't get on Father's Day. You know, I'm doing the old hammer painting, and so for both the 40K and the fantasy stuff that I'll be painting, I'd like to use some of the original colors. I am going to do a review on these. I have some Goblin Green for both a couple of lines before this one that were made by Citadel. I think one of them that's supposed to be the same as this, and then one that maybe came after. But I wanted to show maybe just an example. And so I'll show the Goblin Green just sort of with this range and compare it to the others. It actually comes with some washes. It comes with some metallic paints that are really interesting. They're like colored metallics, and I actually ended up picking these up from Scale Creep Miniatures. They're the distributor within North America, if those of you that are interested, and so they are online, and you can actually get them through Scale Creep Miniatures. Okay, so now back to the chat. Hey everybody, so yeah, so today doing a chat, no sponsored alcohol today because it's actually kind of early in the day. I'm just drinking the cafe is what I've got here, so just a bit of coffee. I am, it's Friday, I am working this weekend, and then I'm actually going on holidays for 8 days. I think the last time that you guys saw me outside of a review video, I was going on holidays and I went to Ottawa. Had a really, really good time. I'll actually show some pictures. I really got to see some cool things. I've never been to Ottawa before. For those of you that are not from Canada, it is the capital of Canada, and I do have some family through my wife there, and it was really good. A really neat city. Really enjoyed it. I went to a historical sort of village. I love going to those, and I'll show you some pictures. But I was got to see some of the worm fencing that we see in the French Indian War stuff quite a bit. That was just very common, and so they had some of that, and I actually got to see a French bateau and take a ride on sort of a boat that they had being pulled by horses with rope through a canal system, which was really neat. It kind of reminded me of some of the boats that I did, even though it wasn't exactly the same. I'll show you pictures of the boat too. Besides that, it was Independence Day, or I should say Canada Day, which is really close to U.S. Independence Day. There was a big to-do downtown. I actually didn't go downtown for it. I mean, there was Bono there and just all kinds of people speaking at it and music and things. I went the day before, and so there were people practicing on stage, and there was a lot of stuff going going on downtown at that time, and there was a lot of security. I mean, guys with assault rifles and security checks that were stricter than the airport, going through. And we went through all that just so I could see Parliament Hill, and there was an interesting statue. I didn't research it since then, but it looked like it was from the War of 1812 or something. That was right in front of one of the buildings, and I took a picture of that. I'll throw it up as well. But overall, it was really good. Forgive me if I get this wrong, but I think there's an artist called Alicia that my daughter really likes, and she was actually playing there, and my daughter went up to the stage when she was practicing and got a wave from her, and that kind of made her day. So I have some video of that too. I could throw that up too, I believe. I don't think I'll get dinged on that. But yeah, it was kind of...
Check 1, 2.
Social graces bow your head. That guy's here, but you and I are with pioneers. We make our own rules, our own road. Nobody's here. Let them sell what they are selling. There are no buyers here. So gather all the rebels now. We rebel rouse and sing aloud. We don't care what they say. No way, no way. And we will leave the empty chairs to those who say we can't sit there. We find our back. So
really enjoyable time out in Ottawa. It did rain a lot, but I was off with the family and just had a good time despite that. And so one of the things I'm gonna talk about vacation, July, and the channel. July is over with now, but I want to just talk about it in reflection for next year. And basically, I'm kind of thinking that I'm just going to take off on the channel every July or something like that, first week of July, or even to first week of August, because we usually go away the first week of August. we don't always go away in July, but I'll be honest with you, as much as I love the channel, and I'm excited about doing stuff for the channel, I really like connecting with folks that I know through YouTube, and I like the whole kind of vlog thing. I find it fun. But despite that, it's kind of nice to have a break. I think even when you really like something, you know, there's nothing wrong with taking a break, you know, not doing it like throughout the entire year. I know that I've really not been on YouTube much the last month. I mean, I've watched and replied some videos, but really not much. So if I missed a video of somebody that I normally subscribe to their channel, don't take it personally or anything. It's just I haven't really been on YouTube as much, and then because I have big feeds, you know, from subscribing to a lot of people, if I kind of get behind, sometimes it's hard to actually backtrack and get caught up in some cases. And so, yeah, don't take that personally, anybody. I haven't really been watching as much, or and obviously making videos in July. And I found it kind of refreshing. I've had to do some work on my house. Last year, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but I had like my house painted and also some new concrete put in for driveway and patio. Well, the way it worked out, there was really no perfect way to do it because I didn't want the painters coming in after putting in the new concrete and getting paint on the concrete. So I did the concrete afterwards, and the concrete guys got all kinds of concrete dust on the bottom area of my house where the new paint job was. So my job this summer was to paint our fence, which surrounds our property, and then also paint the house where it was messed up. And so I did that last week, and that took a lot of my time outside of other things. But yeah, you know, it was really nice just to sort of clear my head. I wouldn't say I was feeling a funk so much with the channel, but sometimes you kind of just get into a routine, and I was struggling there a little bit in maintaining my Heresy Hump Days and things. Still probably am, because this is really me making an entrance back now, and it's already past Hump Day. But yeah, I really sort of enjoy just having some time off, clearing my head, and just kind of hitting the reset button for another year. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting is with the channel in this time of the year is that I actually started the channel in 2012, and it was kind of around this time. It might have been in August or September, or it could have been July. I don't really remember because it was 2012, but I'm kind of hitting a 5-year sort of time period of when I started it. And so that's kind of neat too, just to think of how the channel's transformed. It's actually changed quite a bit since the very beginning. You know, not in the sense that I'm still doing Warhammer stuff and it's still painting and miniature gaming, but I would just say the focus of the channel has changed at times. Like, it was very much just a project vlog when I first started, a painting vlog. Just, you know, I kind of incorporated other things. If I got like a new book or, you know, something for Warhammer, I included it. But I like to think now, yeah, it's expanded a bit. Just as my hobby has expanded, the channel has kind of expanded in content and types of content since then. So yeah, it's kind of just interesting to reflect sometimes. It just went really fast. I can't believe it's been 5 years. Yeah. So I think that's all I really wanted to say. Just, I am going, I guess just to continue on the vacation thing, is I am going away with family next week, and I'll be away for 8 days. So I say I'm back, but I guess it'll really, I guess I'm not. I didn't really think about that. I'm back with a video this week, but it'll probably be still another couple of weeks before Heresy Hump Days continue as scheduled. That was a bit of a faux pas. I didn't even really think about that. It shows how much I've been on vacation in my head, or in summer. I'm not even really thinking about scheduling for the channel and stuff. But one of the things that I have watched a lot of movies, whether it be in the theater, like I saw Despicable Me 3 with my kids. I think I told you guys that I saw the Alien movie, but I ended up watching, I picked up a number of DVDs. I went through, and I've been actually changing my VHS collection over to DVD finally. Like, I have some VHS movies that I just never updated to either DVD or Blu-ray. And I've just done that. But in the process, I picked up some movies that I never really owned, but either liked or, I've seen and really liked at one point or another. Now on one of the Spooky Oktoberfests, one of the questions was, in years past, think of a really scary movie that you like, and tell us about it and answer all these questions about it. And years ago, one of the ones that I picked was John Carpenter's The Fog, because I always kind of liked that movie. But another movie that John Carpenter did that he's more famous for, I would say, that I liked as a kid, but I'll go into it a little bit more depth than just saying I liked it, was The Thing, the 1982 movie The Thing. I found that movie really, really scary as a kid. I think I was 9 or 10, because I believe it was 1982 when it came out. So I would have been 9 in 1982. And I found that movie extremely scary as a kid. I think I watched it on HBO maybe the year after it came out at home. And I was alone watching it. Like, there was nobody in the room watching it with me. And it was like in the evening, if I remember correctly. And it really scared me as a kid. The special effects are really good, even to this day. And at the time, I think they were just out of this world. Now, having said that, I don't think it's the scariest movie in the world, but oftentimes movies I like that are horror aren't just the ones that make me jump out of my seat. They also can just be very cool and eerie and have other experiences that kind of call them horror, make them horror for me. It definitely was a horror movie and had scary components to it, but I found, besides being scary, I found it really disgusting. There's a bit of a revolting feeling that comes with the special effects in The Thing. And I was reminded of this, and I was extremely conscious of this when I was eating lunch before I was going into work. And I was watching a review after I'd watched The Thing recently, just within a couple of days. I was watching somebody do a review on YouTube of the movie The Thing. And they were showing some of the movie, in this review. While I was eating, I was watching this, and I didn't feel like I was going to throw up, but I could feel a sense of revulsion internally as I was watching this review and I was eating my lunch. And I thought to myself, that's really powerful. Like, it's so realistic for the time, and the type of physical animation that's used, that's not computer generated, but all physical and real, like right in front of you. It really has its own sort of look and effect. And to this day, I think it's still, and much of it, I think, actually still is very good. Now, my youngest, I think I do show movies to my kids, and I don't like movies because my kids are still young, like with overt sexual themes, to watch them with them. But my kids are kind of used to violence and sort of gore and like science fiction and that kind of stuff. I've supervised movies and watched them with them, and like they don't have a problem with it. As a matter of fact, I probably was much more scared watching Alone, the Thing, in 1982 than my daughter, who was also 10 and a half, watching it today with me there in the room, was not nearly as frightened by it. She even felt that the one scene where the guy actually sticks his hands through the chest and the jaws come in and clamp down on the arms, for those of you that know what I'm talking about from the movie, she felt that looked extremely fake, but was, I think, impressed with the rest of the special effects in the movie. I thought even that was actually still cool to this day, but some of us are biased that have seen it then. Now, I was so scared by this movie. I'm going to kind of backtrack a bit. I was so scared by this movie as a kid that I really never watched it after that. I mean, I watched it, was impressed with how scary it was, but never really thought to pick it up again over the years. So it's not one, and like many other movies where I've picked it up over the years, it's not one that I rewatched a lot. And so there aren't a lot of movies like that where I have like a healthy respect for it, but I don't actually give it another try or continue to watch it. And so I picked it up, I watched it, I was probably discovering how much I liked it in some ways for the first time as an adult, watching it. And I became a bit of a fanatic about it because I started reading all the reviews on it. I watched, I went out and bought the 2011 or 13, I think it was 2011, prequel that they made. It was a bit of a prequel. And then the guys that were involved with the 2011 prequel with the special effects, the original special effects that were meant to be physical like the first movie before they dubbed some of them with CGI. Those guys did a Kickstarter and did a movie called Harbinger Down that's on Netflix right now. They funded it with a Kickstarter, and I watched that too. So I've watched all three of them within the month of July. And it's funny. I mean, I definitely, even after not having watched the first one for years and not having watched it too much, I definitely like that one from 1982, John Carpenter's, the best. But having said that, I really liked the prequel. I thought it was done very well. I thought that some of the special effects that they took out, as I've read, and went over them with CGI, like in the ending of the movie, I wasn't that impressed with that. But I really liked how they tried to combine it with the first film, and they essentially do the Norwegian sort of section of the story that happens prior to the American in Antarctica and the bases. And so I still thought it was actually pretty cool. I liked a lot of the stuff they did to tie it together. I didn't really like the ending and how they tied it with the first film. I didn't think they did a really good job of making that seamless. I thought it felt a bit like a stretch. But they had a lot of, for those of you that haven't watched any of these and want to, you're welcome to skip ahead because I am kind of saying some spoilers. But there were some physical props from the first film that were sort of creatures that they maybe showed in the first film, but you didn't actually get to see in action. You got to see them after the fact. Well, they showed them like in action in the prequel movie that was done later in 2011, and I liked that. I actually thought that was really cool. I mean, they were working with something that others had done before them and kind of making it fit, but they did it in a way that was actually very cool. And, pretty grotesque to the original theme. I mean, one of the things that really impressed me with the first film was the believability of the alien sort of experience of, in some ways it's kind of like a body snatcher sort of experience. And I'll throw a picture up if I can find one tonight. I should be able to. I think I can. But this is one of the first guys that kind of gets taken over by the alien. Not I don't know that it is the first, but he's one of them, if not the first. The face that this actor sort of displays when they show him, you know, out in the cold, and everybody sees him, has this idea that something's going on. They put the bright lights on him, and you see this guy's face, and it is just done so well. Like, it really is. He displays a sense of alienness about him that I was really impressed with the actor's ability to translate that. In some ways, he kind of almost epitomized it for me, for the film, like that sort of scene. And it's even before like all the gore and stuff, right? Like it's before any of the physical manifestations of the awesome special effects that the film's known for. When you just see this guy's face and it's blaring under the white light of the outdoor artificial light in the snow, he looks like either he's 3 sheets to the wind or he's got the thing in him. It's one or the other. Like, he's either so inebriated that he's just looking at them, you know, like it could be that he used his inebriated face, but he looks so intense, and but also sort of just not there, like there but not there, that I was just really impressed with it. I didn't really think of the inebriated similarity until just now. It's kind of why I like doing these chats, thinking out loud like this. You know, like they could have had an officer come through and be like, "Sir, I'm going to have to test your breath. You're either under the influence or you've got a bit of the thing about you." So, really enjoyed that. I don't have much to say about the second film, you know, to spoil it or whatever, other than that, I'm not always big on sequels that are done years later, and it's refreshing when something is done and it's done pretty well. I don't think it touches the original, but, you know, like as far as being as good, because the original did it the first time, but it did a really good job of recreating that. And in my recreating for me, somebody that just watched the original again recently, loved it, and it really created the experience well, in my opinion. Now, Harbinger Down was interesting because it didn't, you know, you kind of knew that it was meant to be something like The Thing, but I didn't know enough about the background and the purpose of the story as to how much it was supposed to be the same. I think at the end of the day it was pretty similar in the genre respect, but you know, it takes place out on the ocean instead of out in Antarctica. Makes sense because you're still recreating a claustrophobic environment of a whole bunch of people trapped in a situation with something pretty evil, and then also not, you know, this whole idea of distrust around each other, because everybody sort of distrusts everybody, nobody knows, because they're basically dealing with a mimic. And each film tries to recreate how folks figure out ways to try to tell whether somebody's been infected or not. So it's kind of interesting how they do that. The special effects were good. All in all, an enjoyable film if you like the genre. But in some ways, I'm not going to say... I guess I would say that I liked the prequel in 2011 better only because of my attachment to the first film, and I liked how they started there and answered some questions, and you got to see that component, and even, you know, whether it be the music, you know, the mood and the music, a lot of it was preserved, and, you know, where it is in Antarctica and all of that stuff. I enjoyed that purely because I was so saturated in the original at the time of watching it. But I happen to love, like, fishing reality shows and like Deadliest Catch and like all of that kind of stuff. And the Harbinger Down is basically just that. I mean, it's like on a fishing or exploratory vessel that's kind of like a fishing vessel. And you're dealing with a similar kind of situation. I thought they did a really good job with it, and I'd recommend it to anyone that, if you in particular liked The Thing and you haven't seen it, then I would recommend it. I think you might enjoy it. I don't think it necessarily has some of the subtle things going on that the first film had, like either one of the sequels. But I still think they were pretty good. Don't really know what else to say. I wanted to bring that up. I'm not sure how many diehard Thing fans there are out there. I just really enjoyed it. The other thing I find really funny is that it's like we've had a really hot summer here in Alberta. Last year in July, it was raining like crazy. Like, we basically lost a good portion of our summer to rain, which it's a huge deal because here there is only like 4 decent months of weather a year, fairly decent, and so even losing one of them, it really sucks a big part of your decent weather out. And I happen to be somebody that kind of likes winter, so I'm not like crying about it because I actually don't really mind our winters here. I actually like it. But it was funny how I was so focused on a film that took place in Antarctica, like in our nicest weather. Like, I'm watching movies about bad weather. I thought that was kind of funny. I was reflecting a bit about that. So, I'm not sure how long this chat's going to go today, because I don't have a ton to talk about. You'd think I would, since I've been gone for a bit. But, I was going to talk a bit about the Savage Core, just my thoughts so far. I did that review already, but I've been reading it more and just kind of absorbing it more, thinking about terrain, just different stuff for the game. And one of the things that it just really hit me as I was reading about Savage Core, and in particular the Double Trouble scenarios, is just that it kind of reminded me, I'm going back to movies and cinema again here, but it kind of reminded me in some ways of a movie that I love. And it's not the old movies like that I've referenced before when talking about Savage Core, but when you have like your Double Trouble things where all of a sudden it can be an earthquake, or like, it can be a T-Rex like running across the board. It can be an explorer, that enters the board, or like a Nazi officer from the Third Reich, and like you have people, you have beasts, you have weather conditions, and I thought, what does this remind me of? Like, this really reminds me of something. And what it reminded me of was this. Yes, it reminded me of Jumanji, which I thought was really cool because there are aspects to it that are nothing like Jumanji. Like, the setting is definitely like under the earth. It's like those classic movies where, it's like a cavern of life, like under the earth. It's the, I forget the name of it, but there's the 1940s, there was the under-earth sort of theory or phenomena or genre, but it was this idea that there's just like a lot of hype in that time, in that pulp era, about the under-earth fantasy setting. And it definitely is that in Savage Core. But when you look at the Double Trouble scenarios, and if you forget that for a moment, if you forget that it's sort of like its own setting, the Double Trouble scenarios remind me a lot of like the Jumanji board game, which is so cool. Like, I just I'm not, I just have that feeling, from it as I'm reading it, which I just think is really neat. It's like all of a sudden you're playing your scenario, and then all of a sudden there's a chance that a Double Trouble happens. It does happen, and then you're rolling, and it turns out that it is, a a stampede of beasts coming at you. You know, and because it's the type of world it is, the savage world, and Jumanji had very much that flair, you know, because a lot of games kind of use randomized encounters in them, but this one just really screamed of it, and it's funny, it just didn't hit me right away. Like, I've actually, you know, a year ago I was looking into the game, and I kind of was talking to Steve Slay, and he talked about the concept of these encounters, and I didn't really think of it then, but the more I was reading the rules and thinking about miniatures for the game, I was like, there's like a Jumanji element to this. I actually love it. It's actually a really good thing in my mind. But yeah, I'm looking at doing the Savage Core stuff, and so I'm going to feature it on the channel. I think it's going to be really refreshing because there seems to be definitely some strategy in the mechanics of the game, but it also seems like the rules are not overly complex to the point where it's going to be a heavy amount of investment. Like, I do think it'll take some time to learn it, and to apply it, you know, like on the table, and to get it right as intended, but I don't think it's going to be a deterrent. You know, and it's funny because I like all different styles of games. I just spent a video, the last chat I did, I literally was just talking about how I wanted to try some more complex games. And I was talking about, and that's where Battletech kind of came in, you know, for the amounts of charts and detail involved in the mech warfare. And I'm still interested in that for the same reasons. But I said at that time that I like different types of games. Like, I like Musket and Tomahawks and other games where I feel like the play is a bit smoother, probably than Battletech, and faster paced. And I think this is going to fit into a smoother, faster paced game, which I don't mind having another one like that in the collection. But I also think, in its own way, through the scenarios and the Double Trouble and the factions with their different types of abilities, there's going to be a lot of flair and narrative as part of it as well. The other thing I find really exciting is that you know, when you get into the Savage Core, you're getting into a bit on the ground floor, and I do enjoy that. It did sort of work negatively for me with Marvel, in the sense that I felt like I got on the ground floor, but then the floor dropped beneath me. That could happen here, although, you know, this is like a flagship game, and they're starting and really formalizing a company around it. And so and just from what I've seen of the creators and the way they've been handling it, I don't think it's just going to disappear tomorrow. But you always run the risk of that. I mean, like, you know, there is no, people are not basically signing their lives away to you when they sell you miniatures. So you always run the risk of that. But at the same time, I think that it has a lot of potential to do really well. And they've referenced how they're going to be doing other things, most likely, too. And more importantly, right in the rules, and they've actually talked about how they're adding scenarios, and just like on how I mentioned in the video, they're adding Double Trouble encounters, and things like that. And they encourage a lot of self-regulation between players and home rules and stuff too. Like, they even say, like, in the rules where they talk about terrain and modifiers, they basically say, like, you can do it this way or you can do it this way. It really just needs to be decided by you and your opponent before the game. And I kind of like that. They create a bit of flexibility within the system for you to enjoy it the way you want to. Like, if you want a game that goes ultra fast and that you're not actually hiding behind terrain and you know, doing modifiers based on terrain, then you can play it that way. If you actually, they do define terrain, and if you want to have more modifiers and add that for a bit of tactical component to the game, then you can do it. So I actually like that approach. I'm excited to see the fan base and the creators adding to the game, you know, as time goes on, whether it be factions or to the rules, and just to see it evolve and develop continually, I think is going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I showed you that dinosaur that I had gotten. I've had I don't want to go too crazy right away. I'm pacing myself because I get into a lot of games. So I want to get my factions painted up, a little bit of terrain scratched together. I am looking at the whole aquarium route for some jungle plants and things, aquarium terrain. But I have a few things that I'm just really resisting getting for the table and for the game that are not like your clear factions and things that you need to play. I saw some really cool giant wasps, and I'm thinking that since this is Savage World, I love the idea of giant insects because I was just watching Steve Jackson's King Kong with my daughter recently, and most of the King Kong movies, like if you watch Kong Island or the one prior, the Steve Jackson one, they usually have giant insects on the Savage World. There are no rules specifically right now for giant insects, although the way the rules are written, you could even use giant insects as your beasts for your beast scenario. So you have the freedom to do that. They don't say like you must have a giant mutated aardvark, or something like that. Like they don't like dictate exactly in all situations. Like the T-Rex scenario does mention a T-Rex, although if you had like an Allosaurus or something like that, I'm sure it would be fine just to substitute. But I have this desire to add like really colorful like giant insects to the game through either through the scenarios, etc. So we will see. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's going to be it, guys. So I did my bit of my table update and talked a little bit about why I haven't been on the channel. I am coming back. I apologize if I've not been around to respond to other people's videos or putting out videos myself, but I definitely plan on being back into a regularly scheduled program pretty soon. But yeah, I don't know for you guys that are content producers, whether you ever, consciously take breaks. I'm going to just, I think, announce next year in the summer, like maybe first week of July, that, like, going off the air for a month. Because, it's important to recharge, and some people may not need to do that, or not feel they need to, but I found that I still looked at stuff for gaming and things online a bit, but I mainly just really enjoyed the time away and just realizing how much I like it and looking forward to coming back to it afterwards. So, alright everybody, I think that's it. Thanks for stopping by for those of you that are watching, and I will talk to you later. Take care.